First of all, this is from Ray Bonecrusher's live stream on Saturday. Oh, and by the way, this is your transcript. You can't say I'm defaming you or anything. This is the transcript. These are the words that came out of your mouth. So, somebody in the chat said Jeremy is using the whole Christianity thing as a tax dodge. Okay? Do you have proof that Jeremy is using the Christianity thing as a tax dodge? No, because you don't have any proof of anything that you've said. By begging for dumb followers to get him info to show how worried he was and how the survey will prove it. Now he's letting you know something that was going to touch on the survey is going to clear up in a lot of things, and we're going to know whether, well, we all got a good idea that Jeremy was less than truthful, at least in my opinion, on the landmark there. I put the note that the survey was already done, and part of that property is on Jeremy's property. Those people's house and stuff is on part of his property. Let's see. Won't someone think of the poor scamming millionaire? Okay, do you have proof that Jeremy is a scamming millionaire? Do you have proof? I've not seen anything that Jeremy is some kind of scamming millionaire. Okay? And then he was going on about the timestamp thing again. And the timestamp thing was about the money that was being raised illegally on the Two Fleas channel. And the money that was being taken in by them. Alright, we've got a bunch of stuff here. John and Michelle, grifters, and yet almost every time they're asking for money on their own channel, not John and Michelle. What is wrong on that? First of all, Michelle and John have shown a past pattern of grifting. They did it in Northport, and they did it when they came to Otter Creek. They thought that they could grift off of. I had to read my note. They said that they thought that they could grift off of Jeremy. And when that backfired, that's when all this got started with Michelle and John. When you look into the posting, the hillside is money, and if you look into the postings on 2V and the pod, you're going to see a collection of what he does about money, about collecting. And I think that was taken. Well, look at the Two Fleas. Okay, these people donated money to their fund, but didn't show any transparency whatsoever about. And you can't say that they actually showed transparency. She told everybody that she was not going to show transparency. And that's what brought up the question about where that money was going. In other words, that money went into her pocket. And then they said, oh, we don't have to show anything. So I don't know. A few channels a few videos. It's continuous. First of all, Ray, Jeremy never begged for money. It was the two fleas that was begging for money. The humor in this, okay, for a long time they talked about buckets. So the thing with the buckets is a joke. It was also a way to make money. John's had to use a bucket, okay. The first people that gathered that Mr. Hales used to use a bucket, and then they're talking about somebody else. Dumbass. Jeremy was using buckets of water to flush the toilet because their toilet wasn't hooked up to the water. There at the ranch, I'm aware of a matter of fact the ground there is fairly low, and they would probably have to build it up and put a system in that worked adequately, because I don't know what happens when it rains. Well, first of all, the condition of the ranch and what's on that ranch is none of your business. Okay? Insinuation about buckets, and was able to sell them at a pretty good, $2 a bucket, and you get 10 items. You get 10 times the amount with no lid. And it's a one-time deal crap, and throw it away, but they don't give you a lid, so you can seal it, and he'll tell you where you can throw it away when you get done. It was a joke, okay? It was a joke. It was a joke and a money-making thing for Jeremy. And then he talked about Michelle and John crapping in a bucket. Well, you know what? Their outdoor toilet was a bucket with a toilet seat on it, and they pissed. They had a thing where they could piss into a laundry detergent bottle. Here we go. Happening said, German Travis obsessed with porta potty. It's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke about the porta potty thing. It's also called freedom of speech. Something that you abuse by defaming Jeremy every time you come on your live stream or you make a video. Everybody said that something bad about me. Can you imagine how rough it would feel? As if I always go back to John and Michelle and what they went through, and if I was to put myself in their shoes for one day, they've had more torment in a day than they have in a year. Now, this is Lynette and John's fault. They are the ones to blame for this. They're the ones that started this. They went to Half Meal Time to Grill and got in for free. When Michelle asked Jeremy to put a donation box and Jeremy said no, that's when all this started. You have nobody to blame but John and Michelle. Oh, that's right, you're brainwashed by what the two fleas say. You believe the lies that the two fleas say. And it wasn't Jeremy that started all this. Again, it was John and Michelle. I want you to think about when this is when John spent 40 days in jail for nothing. And this goes back to Wes, okay? So Wes didn't say anything to John. They went to Tube Town, they visited, they signed the guest book, and they were driving off. John said something to them. When Wes backed up, that's when John pulled that pew pew on them and that little girl and his family. And then he said that it was Wes's intent when that guy came down here, a previous felon to town, created disturbance purposely. John responded, but he didn't. But he didn't. John did nothing wrong. You pulled a pew pew on somebody with the intent to do bodily harm. Possession, assault with a deadly weapon. Oh, listen to this shit. I understand. I want you to understand that John never pointed, nor did he pull anything on the bang stick. Okay? He didn't do that. False. He did pull a pew pew on somebody. Okay? He did pull a pew pew on somebody. And Wes and them didn't even say nothing to him. All Wes asked him, "What did you say, John?" Because Wes couldn't hear what he was saying. So the poignant thing as a young child was a lie. John explained that to the cops that picked him up and told him he was set up. There was no set up. Oh my God, you all need to stop telling fucking lies. Oh my God. It wasn't a setup. They were just moving, they were just doing their thing, visiting Tube Town. And they were driving by and John yelled at them. And Wes backed up. The hero asked him what John had said. And that's when he pulled the pew pew on him. And then he goes on about, okay, they took this other guy's word against John. Why they did, I have no idea. He didn't have the money to bond out, so he spent 40 days there for nothing because of this guy. Asshole, when you pull a pew pew on somebody, that's assault with a deadly weapon. And he said about this thing about Wes and what he did with the money. Well, maybe it is your business, but maybe it isn't your business, you know? If you know, you know, right? Right, guys? Anything not yet, but he spent 40 days in jail for something that he was not guilty of. Think about that. You're poor and scales of justice are leading the wrong way. Again, he pulled a pew pew on somebody with the intent to do bodily harm. That's assault with a deadly weapon. That's why he was arrested. Again, he keeps bringing this up over and over again. And now we're going to get into the trailer thing. We're going to get into Lloyd's camper, the trailer. Advantage of that time to remove a trailer off from the property that actually had a verbal lien against it and at the process of taking something. Okay, there was no verbal agreement between Michelle and Lloyd. Okay? There was no verbal agreement between Michelle and Lloyd. She texted Lloyd to try and get him to sell the trailer to him, and he said no. So there was never agreement. liens were just thing so happy that he could pull. They're so happy they would pull one over on Michelle and John. It could not have been done as easily as if John was there. But this guy that was there, and if you listen to what was on the videos, that man that had his trailer removed admitted he made a deal on that trailer, and people came on there. There was no agreement. Again, there was no agreement with John, or with Michelle and Lloyd. Lloyd had every right when he got to the property and gave them permission to take that trailer off of her property. He had that right to take that trailer. They had the right to take that trailer and his vehicle off of her property because Lloyd gave it permission. Okay? There was no legal agreement between Michelle and Lloyd. Okay? And they say that okay, but anyway, the guy that was there that took his trailer off owed money to Michelle on a deal that was made about the trailer being there. Bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. Okay? If I remember correctly, and you can go back on those videos, okay, Lloyd paid for the taxes. He paid for a bunch of stuff as part of his rent to stay there. How did Lloyd owe her money? So they're still saying that he took them. They took the trailer off the ground to get to somebody else there in town and sold it. Michelle and John never got the money back they were supposed to get. They were supposed to receive. Okay, they were never entitled to any money from the sale of that trailer. That trailer was owned by Lloyd. There was no agreement between them. Lloyd didn't owe them any money. And the money that was raised went back to Lloyd. They attacked my property twice. Once when I was in the hospital and once when I was in jail. They don't have the balls to come there when... That's right, John. I feel exactly the same way and the people that were involved. Nobody attacked your property, John. And as far as this big talk, this is coming from somebody who's an alcoholic that likes to pull pew-pews on people. Then he said, asking a lawyer to talk about he has a hard problem. He started out as a dentist and lost his license over fraud and couldn't get a license as a lawyer until he came to Florida. First of all, why are you looking into Randy Shockett's background? And two, what happened in the past with Randy isn't any of your fucking business. Post on a post, I think on Bruce's end, it went over the people, just to give an idea. He has 94% rating. And he went on about Bruce. Bruce is the worst lawyer in this country. He's losing it for his clients. And he may soon lose his license. Oh, get this. They said that George said something else. Somebody said that George liked Elvis, and ever since then, it seems that every time something Elvis comes up, you see the smirk on Jeremy's face. You can tell it must have pissed him off, and some. And that's not true. That is not true. Okay, that's not true. So why do you keep telling lies? This is the reason why you're being sued, you old fool. Because you can't keep your mouth shut. Okay, then there's a part about the Marilyn Raby thing. Okay, Jeremy Jeremy deliberately put his foot in front of the car so he could hit. No, she tried to hit him with the car. Get your facts straight. Goodness, he said Germ's followers were cruel to Mary. None of Jeremy's followers were cruel to Mary. And he went on about Mary having a stroke and Jeremy was the cause of it. No, a stroke is caused by a medical condition. A stroke is caused by several medical conditions, medical conditions that can cause a stroke. The stress supposedly on her wasn't the cause of her stroke. Social media abuse is what he called it. Again, a stroke is caused by medical conditions, not under stress. It may be you could cause a stroke, but I think a stroke is caused by a medical condition. All right. And he went on about Jeremy and Mary in her office and then Lisa Flea was telling him that Jeremy was trapping her in her office. Jeremy never trapped her in that office. That's bullshit. Stop telling lies. Put them together. He trapped her and she was scared and wanted out, and he wouldn't let her out at the fence. And then when he put his hand on her, which she's not supposed to put her hand on him at all. Stop telling lies. And this is the reason, Ray, that you're getting sued. And this is the reason why you're getting sued. Because you can't shut your mouth. You cannot stop telling lies about Jeremy. And now it's going to catch up to you. And he goes on again about the timestamp stuff. And that supposedly Jeremy was paying his subscribers for that. First of all, the timestamp thing was about the money that was being taken in by the two fleas. It had nothing to do with anything that he's talking about on here. Alright. I got you to know, it's still my belief that under normal circumstances, when two neighbors get into it, it could be settled very quickly and should never be in a courtroom. That this went far. There's two things involved right here. It's the expertise of a person that was making a mountain out of a molehill. Okay, it went too far because Michelle and John kept on and kept on and kept on and kept on and kept on. Jeremy responded. They got a cease and desist, but they ignored that cease and desist and kept on 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 and kept breaking the protection order. Chunktown mayor was. Oh, so he's saying that Deanna and Travis were bumping uglies. Okay, do you have proof of this? You keep saying, you say these things and you make these accusations against people that you don't know, but you don't have proof. And this was a personal attack on Jeremy. Jeremy said he had a potato-shaped man-child, oversized tongue, receding hairline, and only 2-inch pipe. You know, I got the perfect gift. I want you to think about this. They sell these manicure kits. My advice to you, Ray, is you need to shut up now. Stop this defamation garbage that you're doing. Because all you're going to do is get into trouble. But this is defamation. All this right here is defamation. All this right here is defamation, okay? This is defamation, what you said here. This is all defamation. And you can't say I'm defaming you, or I'm harassing you, or I'm bullying you, because this came from your own transcript, from your own live stream. My suggestion is, you need to shut the fuck up. And stop defaming Jeremy before you get yourself into more serious trouble. Okay, thank you for watching.